see, Tim, as you well know, a better version of Iowa on defense. You're going to see a more talented Iowa on defense in the form of Michigan. So they've got the 4- and 5-star athletes, but they play just as tight technically and wrap up the tackles, and they're in the right spots, and they're gritty and nasty and determined. And this Michigan defense, it's difficult to rate across the country. We know Alabama's there, Clemson's there, Ohio State's there as the top defenses in the country, but Michigan is one of the very best units.
Oh, indeed. And I think what sets them apart from Iowa, obviously, besides talent, is their coordinator, defense coordinator, Don Brown. He's known for being a very aggressive, like, play a man up against your receiver, just blitz the hell out of you. Just try to disguise blitzes. I mean, he really is a maestro at coaching defense, and there's no question the guy's ability. And even with all the struggles they've had offensively, that defense has given them a chance in every game they've played this year, and it'll give them a chance this Saturday too. So I mean, it's like I said before, I think it's going to be a tight game throughout, due in large part to Michigan's defense. Again, with Penn State struggles in the offensive line, especially on the right side, it's definitely something to be concerned about. I can envision guys like Rashawn Gary and Maurice Hurst Jr. getting into the backfield and disrupting things several times tomorrow night. Wouldn't surprise me one bit. So it's something I hope the coaching staff is ready to address, try to mitigate. You're not going to completely shut them down, but you got to try and prevent them from from blowing your backfield up too many times.
Yeah, I caught the Indiana game last week, and Maurice Hurst was a menace to the Hoosiers. He blocked a field goal. He had some tremendous plays in which he would just throw back 2 offensive linemen into the backfield and completely disrupt a play, sometimes on very short yardage, 3rd and short, 4th and short. And yes, the Michigan defense, despite losing, depending on your depth chart, 9 or 10 starters from last year's really good defense, seems to have improved despite moving all those guys onto the NFL, a Michigan record for players moving on to the pros in one NFL draft. Well, let's turn into the Penn State offense, because that's your knowledge base, and that's where you can really provide us some in-depth analysis here, Tim. So I caught the Iowa game. I saw some of the Pitt game. It seems as though the offense might be better this year. It seems to be more efficient, less mistakes. It doesn't look better because the big plays aren't there in the passing game as much. Teams have really determined to stop Saquon Barkley, or at least slow him down as a running back. He's hurt teams doing other things. But it might surprise some people across the country that the Heisman leader only has 2 100-yard rushing games out of 6 efforts. But your thoughts about the Penn State offense through 6 games?
Well, you kind of hit upon it. There haven't been quite as many explosive plays, or at least the one thing you're not seeing as much is the deep ball from last year, where Trace would just lob it up, a 50-50 ball for Chris Godwin, and Godwin most of the time would come down with that. So maybe it wasn't so much a 50-50 ball, but you don't see as much this year, and part of that is because he doesn't. As good, even though the receiving core is good, there's a bevy of options, but there isn't that true. No one has stepped up yet as that true number 1 receiver, like a Chris Godwin type, who Trace can put his full trust in and say, "Hey, I can go deep, I can throw this up for you, and I can trust you to, make a play on the ball, even with a guy on you." He hasn't found that person yet. Now, maybe that person could emerge Saturday night. Who knows? It could be Juwan Johnson. Deshaun Hamilton, maybe it could be Saeed Blackmore or DeAndre Tompkins, who knows? But he has yet to find that true number 1 go-to receiver in the crunch that he can just throw deep balls to. Now, what you did hit on, though, is it is a little more efficient. They tend to march downfield a little more. But yes, defenses are now keying in on Saquon with the goal of trying to shut him down on the ground. But that's where Joe Moorhead's creativity comes into play, trying to throw the ball more to Saquon, use him more as a receiver, get him out in space. The coaching staff putting him back as a kick returner. And I don't know if you saw any of the Indiana game or saw the highlights, but he took the opening kickoff back for a touchdown. And that that just set the tone for the rest of the game, really. I mean, they ended up scoring 28 points in the first quarter. Half of them came on special teams. Saquon scoring one of those touchdowns. So they're utilizing him in various ways. Obviously, Bryce Love at Stanford is clearly above the rest as far as rushing yards are concerned. I think he's got like 1,300 already. He's over 1,000. I know that much off the top of my head. And Saquon's around like 600 something. But Saquon is an all-purpose player. There's no question he's definitely been the best thus far. But if he's going to stay atop the Heisman race, he's got to continue to produce as an all-purpose guy. I don't think getting it done on the ground alone is going to do it. But I don't know. I would look for him. The coaching. I was reading some articles on the Lions 24/7 site, and there were some quotes from, and I think it was from Franklin, but I think it was during Franklin's weekly press conference, and he said something about they're going to put in a few new wrinkles into the game plan, and so I have to wonder maybe some of those wrinkles involve new ways of getting the ball in Saquon's hands in space. Maybe try running on the edge more, because I know they've been trying to run him for the tackles, and that hasn't been very successful. And it sure as heck isn't going to be successful against that Michigan front seven. So they gotta find ways to get him on the edge, or get him in a mismatch with an opposing linebacker. Just get him out, on a passing route. So that's how you're going to, of course, maybe you can break a big return for a touchdown too. We'll see. Or at least get them good field position.
We're talking Penn State, Michigan, huge matchup in the Big Ten Saturday night in Happy Valley with Tim Aiden from Black Shoes Diary. He joins us on a regular basis to talk Penn State football and the Nittany Lions, number 2 in the nation. So as you alluded to there, some creative play calling may help out the offensive line. There are things that you can do as a play caller to help out an inexperienced or unproductive offensive line, but those are still the guys that have to get the job done. So we can talk about McSorley and Saquon and the wide receivers, but those guys have to get the job done. Now, are they going to dominate the Michigan front, as you just alluded to, Tim? Most likely not, but they have to make it not a jailbreak play after play after play after play. They have to hold their ground, at least give Saquon a crease, give him an edge, give McSorley a time to at least hit his back foot and look for somebody and drive it downfield. And do you have confidence that the offensive line at least can play a game in which they're just not under siege? They hold their ground, they do their job.
I guess I'm hopeful with the extra week to prepare that maybe they can maybe clean some things up. I mean, I'm not expecting them to have fixed everything with the O-line. I don't really know if you can. There can be some lingering issues, but my hope is maybe just maybe it's the whole whiteout atmosphere, or they're fired up looking for revenge. Because I noticed one of the players, I think it was Manny Bowen, starting linebacker, was retweeting a quote from Michigan quarterback Wilton Spate from last year when they were interviewing him post game after the 49-10 beatdown at Penn State, and he was saying something about we called the same play 8 or 9 times, and same run play 8 or 9 times, and kept getting yards, and we were all laughing. It was so funny, and so I'm sure, and I'm talking about a defensive player doing this, but I'm sure the entire team, all the guys who were there last year, still there. I'm sure they haven't forgotten that. They're looking for some revenge under the lights. So maybe that. Sometimes you just, it's unexplainable. Maybe sometimes you just dig deep and you just kind of play out of your minds. I'm not under the delusion that they're going to completely prevent Michigan's D-line from wrecking havoc at times. There's going to be times where they do so, but I'm hopeful they'll stave them off enough to give Trace some time to find his receivers downfield, or maybe give a crease for Saquon to run through. I think the real, for me, and I'm maybe getting ahead of myself here, because maybe we'll talk about the defense next, but what I'm looking for is for the Penn State defense to wreak some havoc on the Michigan offense, which has been very shaky, especially at quarterback. If they can force a few turnovers in Michigan territory, give the offense a short field, maybe they can just get a big play or two for a touchdown, and those could be the difference makers.